Rise and shine, beautiful souls. So listen, a lot of people sent me this video asking me to review it. I am going to review it because I see it as a great teaching opportunity. I'm going to break down the errors in this video, but I am going to play it first all the way through so you guys can hear it clearly, and then I'll go back and go over the errors with you, because I did comment on this and said that she had it wrong. And then people were like, well, what do you mean? Explain. And I'm like, oh, wow. So I can't just do this in a couple of words, so it'd be better to make a video. So that's what I'm doing, family. Here we go.
Theory of general relativity is what Einstein is famous for. In his calculations, he started to realize that the universe was not eternal. It had a beginning. Now this leads us to the law of causality. Everything that came to be needs a cause. So Einstein clearly knew that if the universe had a beginning, it needed a cause. Let's go to the Big Bang Theory. There was no space, no time, and no matter before the Big Bang. The universe emerged out of nothingness. What does that mean? Since it's impossible for the universe to be able to create itself because it didn't exist in order to be able to create itself, nature and the universe itself was just a big effect that was caused by, what are we left with? An extremely powerful, extremely intelligent, precise, given the precision that our universe was created with, personal entity that is capable of existing outside of time, space, and matter. That can't be nothing but God. And for people that are like, okay, well, how do you know that it's like Christianity's God? There's only one God. But there's a very famous astronomer named Robert Jastrow. His credentials as a scientist are impeccable. Being agnostic, he's not even a Christian. He said that all of the essential elements of the Big Bang Theory line up with biblical creation. Because this is how God works. God speaks something, and then science runs to catch up with what he said. Science doesn't create anything. Science studies creation. Let me just answer a question that I always get. Who created God? What'd I say? I said everything with a beginning. Everything that came to be needs a cause. God didn't come to be. God is eternal, the way a lot of people thought the universe was until science disproved it. So God doesn't need a cause or a creator. He is the cause. The universe is the effect. Don't just take my word for it. Go look into it for yourself. One more thing. Evidence is not a substitute for faith. Following God is not a matter of evidence or proof. It's a matter of the will. You have to want to do it so you can have the peace that you're looking for. And if you don't want to make that choice, no amount of evidence is going to convince you to. You have to want to.
All right, family, I'm going to run this back. But first off, let me just say this. You guys sent me this video. You wanted me to review this video. I am going to review the video. I see it as a great teaching opportunity. But I want to say this. A lot of what you guys are going to see in the comments is the first error is ad hominem. That means people are going to assert onto me rather than deal with the information. So you'll see this in a lot of my other videos. They rather say things like you're a demon or you're an apostate and you never loved God, or you have personal problems against God, and that's why you have this belief, rather than deal with the actual information I'm saying. And this leads no one to your idea. You're not getting anyone closer to your belief by asserting onto them. It doesn't work that way. But it's done to discredit the person that's talking, so that a person won't listen to them, so they won't have to deal with the information. So if I can't deal with the information effectively, I'm just going to call you a name. It's childish behavior, but it's called an ad hominem. AD space HOMINEM, ad hominem. Okay. Now I'm going to deal with the other errors that's made in this video as well. Here we go.
Theory of general relativity is what Einstein is famous for. In his calculations, he started to realize that the universe was not eternal. It had...
Okay, first you went to Einstein and said that in his calculations, he started to realize in his research. He started to realize in his research, not started to think or have a theory. He started to realize it. And this is called appeal to authority. By naming Einstein, Einstein is someone who is accepted as smart, and we do this a lot. Because someone may seem to have more information than us or has been accepted as doing so, we'd rather give them the authority so our brain does not have to think. But this is not good because they're not always right, family, regardless of how smart they seem. And if you think for yourself, you'd likely not come to the same conclusion. So don't do appeal to authority. If they're wrong and you follow them because they thought it, now you're a lemming. Don't do that. Please know why you believe in stuff. Study stuff for yourself, family. All right? Don't appeal to authority that does not lead you to a fact every time. Okay? And then saying that he realized it, again, this appeals to what you already believe. So you're going to say that's a fact. And he realized that you're giving him too much. You're romanticizing it. Okay? Here we go.
Now this leads us to the law of causality. Everything that came to be needs a cause. So Einstein clearly knew that if the universe had a beginning, it needed a cause.
Okay, so here we go. Einstein clearly knew. See, she did it again. She's appealing to authority and saying he clearly knew. We still don't clearly know that if the universe is not eternal, it had a beginning. We haven't established that the universe is not eternal. You said Einstein realized it, but we haven't proven this. What do you mean? You know? So hang on. He clearly knew. He clearly knew? No way.
Clearly knew that if the universe had a beginning, it needed a cause.
It needed a cause. Wow. Now, that's called causal fallacy, to say something needed a cause. It's like to say there's no other option but this one, or false dilemma. It needed a cause. No, it didn't need a cause. It could be a catalyst. It does not need to be a cause. It could be a catalyst. We could be a catalyst instead of a creation. You understand? A catalyst means something happened and therefore you are, not someone thought you out. You understand? Having existence doesn't mean that you're a creation. It just does not mean that. And to assume that it must be a cause for your creation, and that's the only option that there is literally false dilemma, a false dichotomy. You created a false dichotomy. Now, and that because of that false dichotomy, you won't be able to get past that, okay? So undo those false dichotomies and say, maybe there's other reasons. Open your mind. Now watch this.
No space, no time, and no matter.
Okay, there was no space, no time, and no matter. Just real quick, family, time still isn't a thing. It does not exist. Time does not exist. Watches do. We are mapping the sun, and we use time to navigate. End up at the same places, family. That's pretty much it. So time is still not a thing that exists, okay? Moments do.
No matter before the Big Bang. The universe emerged out of nothingness. What does that mean? Since it's impossible for...
Bold claim. The universe emerged out of nothingness. That is a bold claim, and the burden of proof is on the believer. And she said that, so if she could prove that, then we could all accept that. And if she could do it, she'd be the first one to ever prove that, because guess what? We can't even establish that there's never been nothingness. That there's ever been nothingness, forgive me. That we don't know what nothing is. This is just a concept. Nothing is a concept. We don't know what nothing is. You understand? So the idea that there was nothing, this is where you guys land on it. There must be a God, because if there was nothing, how do you get something from nothing? What if there never was nothing? We can't prove that. Here we go again.
The universe to be able to create itself, because it didn't exist in order to be able to create itself. Nature and the universe itself was just a big effect that was caused by, what are we left with? An extreme.
Now here we go. She said that again. This right here is another bold claim. Nature is an effect, okay? A cause and effect. So cause and effect. So cause. So nature is the effect. And what are we left with? This is appeal to ignorance, because we don't know. What are we left with? What are we left with? Did we go over it all? I mean, you could have been shat out. You could be pixie dust. You could, and whatever created this could have moved on about his business. This could be a video game. This could all be an illusion. We could all just be in some type of video game. So it does not must mean that this right here.
What are we left with?
What are we left with? Again, appeal to ignorance. And then she goes.
Extremely powerful, extremely intelligent, precise, given the precision that our universe was created with.
We don't know that it's precise. We of course we love the world we live in, family. We're gonna make the best of it, but things die, things murder. We all have to eat stuff to survive. How precise is that? You understand? Our bodies die. We have to die. So again, maybe if we were 1 degree to the left, we wouldn't have to die. Just for instance, if you're saying something is precise, by what are you measuring it against? What other places have you been to say that they're not precise? So again, of course, we have life, and that's beautiful. I don't want the universe to explode on me, but at the same time, we can't say it's precise because it works. You understand?
Personal entity that is capable of existing
a personal entity that's capable of existing outside of space, outside of time, space, and matter. Really? That's what we're left with.
Outside of time, space, and matter. That can't be nothing but God. And for people that are like, okay, well, how do you know that it's like Christianity's God? There's only one God. But there's a very famous astronomer named Robert Jastrow.
There's only one God. Now, hang on. How do you determine that? So, okay, there was nothing. Let's just say you're right. There was nothing, and a God created this universe. But what tells you there's only one? Who told you that? Why do you think there can only be one? Look, do you understand how crazy that sounds? Like, if you already doing a lot by assuming there is one with no evidence, and now you can also assume there's only one based on what?
His credentials as a scientist are impeccable. Being agnostic, he's not even a Christian.
This is also appeal to authority. So she's naming another person and saying that his accolades are impeccable, and then she goes, he's not even a Christian. He's agnostic. So wait a second, time out. Why didn't he get saved? If he said this, now listen.
Said that all of the essential elements of the Big Bang Theory line up with biblical creation.
Okay, now listen, that's deep now. If all of the essential elements of the Big Bang Theory line up with the Bible, why didn't he go get saved? See, why didn't you appeal to his authority? Why didn't you just say, okay, he said that, but I'm gonna remain agnostic? What made you choose to just say, okay, I ain't gonna follow you all the way there? You see, it's because of your upbringing. You know, if you look at reality, nothing in reality leads us to believe that there's an all-powerful, focused being who's personal to you, outside of you, judging you, creating you with intent. The only thing that can do that is honestly sentiment. We want to matter. We want to have purpose. We want to know. We don't want this world to end. We don't want our experience to end. So therefore, sentiment. That's the only thing that we have, honestly, to be able to assume that this type of authority, this type of figure, you understand? We're insecure, you know? And so when you go to places that where their upbringing was never to be taught, they were never taught to accept such ideas, they don't demonstrate that they need such ideas. But if you grow up in a world where you do, then you demonstrate that, okay? So if you're told that you were created, it gives you this sense of purpose. And if someone tells you that you may have not been, or that you weren't, or they don't believe in that, it drives you up a wall. It's just, honestly, it's what it is, family. Probably need a psychologist, psychiatrist.
And then science runs to catch up with what he said.
My pastor used to talk like this: science speaks stuff, and then science run to catch up with it. I mean, God creates stuff, and then science run to catch up with it. My pastor used to talk like that. I used to love it too. But again, what?
Science doesn't create anything. Science studies creation.
Okay.
Let me just answer.
Science does create stuff, but create so many medicines and things like that through science. But again, that's messed up to say that. But here we go, saying that science studies creation. We haven't determined its creation yet. we haven't determined its creation yet. And so if you determine this is a creation, then you need a creator. So if you say we haven't determined it's a creation, then you still have research to do. But the brain doesn't like to think. So the brain doesn't like to think. So the God of the gaps, this thing weighs heavily on us. And that's one of the biggest errors we make. God of the gaps. Wherever I lack information, therefore God. If I don't know, it must be God. And that's why people say, well, Kevin, you crazy for saying it ain't no God. Because we here, we have experience. What else can it be? Appeal to ignorance. That's what that is. You don't know no other way, so you just said it must be a God. Okay, well then what if I told you there was an invisible pink elephant that had superpowers and did all of this stuff? What if I said that's the only way it could be? You understand?
Question that I always get: who created God? What I say? I said everything with a beginning, everything that came.
Right. Who created God? Right? Because that is a good question. If you say that nothing can exist unless it's created, nothing can exist unless it's created. So who created God? And they say, well, God didn't come into existence. He just already did exist. Again, you haven't even substantiated God yet. Now you can say that he's always been. How do you get to say that? You haven't proven any of this. You have not proven any of this. And so for these reasons or reasons that, and it's a logical error. It's like hearing a sound in the bush and thinking it's a monster. And it could be a rabbit, it could be a squirrel, but if I hear a sound in the bush, it must be a monster. We make these errors, family. You know, before God, the earth was on the back of a giant turtle. We always are curious about our existence, but then the brain wants to give up thinking. It's insecure, so it assumes. And for a long time, we've been assuming God.
God didn't come to be. God is eternal, the way a lot of people thought the universe was, until science disproved it. So God doesn't need a cause or a creator. He is the cause. The universe is the effect. Don't just take my word for it. Go look into it for yourself.
Why are we looking into it for ourselves? You listen to Einstein. You already gave us all the information we need. Hell, if we do what you did, we already there.
One thing, evidence is not a substitute for faith.
Oh.
Following God is not a matter of evidence or proof.
Evidence is not a substitute for faith. It cannot be, because faith means to believe. It means you don't know. Evidence means that's a fact and you do know. So it cannot be a substitute. She is absolutely right about that.
It's a matter of the will. You have to want to do it so you can have the peace that you're looking for. And if you don't want to make that choice, no amount of evidence.
See here.
It's a matter of the will. You have to want to do it so you can have the peace that you're looking for.
You have to. It's a matter of will. So faith faith is a matter of will. It's a matter of want to do it so you can have the peace. So this is assuming that if you pursue this, you'll have peace. And again, this comes from the frame of mind that if I don't have God, I don't have peace. And again, if you were never taught this, you wouldn't demonstrate a need for it. You know, so I worked my way through it and I no longer have a need for it. So I don't wake up in fear or insecurity and have to assume that there's something on the other side of life, you know, or death or whatever. So I'm comfortable now in the I don't know, and I'm researching. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with saying I don't have enough evidence to believe it. If no one ever told me about a God, I would never assume it. I would never have assumed that there was a creator on the other side of this that stood outside of space and time. I would have never assumed that that was the case and that it had to be a God. You understand?
And if you don't want to make that choice, no amount of evidence is going to convince you to. You have to want to.
There is evidence. Even if you absolutely do not want to believe in a God, I'm sure there's enough evidence at some point to convince you, even if you don't want to believe it. Even if it's the Bible's God, if you feel like the Bible's God is very mean, if the Bible's God proved itself to you, I'm sure that there's a way it could prove itself to you. You just have to accept that that is God, regardless of whether or not you agree with it. You understand? So I don't think there's anyone who you cannot prove God to. Like, you know what I mean? I think everyone with the right amount of evidence pertaining to that person, whatever they would need, and I'm sure anyone could tell you what they would require to believe in a God. You know what I mean?